All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about something that I think shows how small this community is when it comes to people who actually deal with media in the world of Hollywood and also in the world of superheroes. It's a pretty small world out there. Now, I did a video, Wonder Woman, her deep connection to the DCEU, in which I talked about the brilliance of Zack Snyder and how he actually positions Wonder Woman in the DCEU as compared to how Wonder Woman actually came to be and appeared in the early DC comic book era. You can see there she appeared after Batman, right? So Superman 1938, Batman in 1939, Wonder Woman in 1941, as it says in the video there. So about an hour or so ago, I see Screen Rant put up an article that says Zack Snyder compares Wonder Woman to BVS. And what's intriguing to me is I went into all of the lore and the reason why Wonder Woman even came to be and how people received her. And it's interesting how it mirrors the DCEU. The DCEU mirrors that in that the reason why Wonder Woman is even coming to be and the reason that people are actually accepting Wonder Woman is reflecting the actual way in which in history Wonder Woman was received as a comic book. So Screen Rant, Andrew Dice, who's, to be fair to him, he's been pretty fair to the DCEU more or less. He comes and he writes this article that says Zack Snyder compares Wonder Woman to Batman v Superman. In that article, I'll just scroll down to it. Zack Snyder in this behind the scenes footage that says Wonder Woman, the art of making of the film, Zack Snyder speaks about Wonder Woman, and he talks about Diana, how she's different to the other DCE heroes in the DCEU. He says, she offers a unique opportunity to speak to what it is to be a strong, powerful, independent woman. It's a glance that is necessary in the world, as well as the way that we represent heroes on screen. Having that equal representation of male and female energy is really important to me. I love that there's a purity to Wonder Woman. She doesn't have the broken past. She's not seeking revenge on people that wronged her. She can just be a hero. In short, what Andrew is realizing from this account that Zack Snyder gave, which was actually a while ago, okay? This is not a current thing. He realizes that it's a concise analysis of Diana's character in opposition to the broken or strained souls, realities, origin stories of Batman and Superman, both born from pain and loss in one way or another. That was never the case for Wonder Woman, with the notion of Diana being born a hero frequently mentioned by filmmakers during the making of the film. He goes on to say earlier on, the first reactions to Wonder Woman's bright, optimistic, hopeful hero may have led to further criticism of Zack Snyder's style for the DCEU, but it seems Diana's stark contrast to the tone of Batman v Superman was what Snyder had always intended for DC's first female superhero. So he's beginning to understand, and he links it to saying that Zack Snyder was being pretty intentional in how Wonder Woman was actually handled in the DCEU, and it basically agrees with my video, Wonder Woman and her deep connection to the DCEU. And I was tying in Wonder Woman to BVS and to Justice League. I don't know if this gentleman, Andrew Dice, happened to come across my video or somebody sent it to him, but it's very interesting that a couple hours after I've put out my video, he comes out with this article on Screen Rant, which is very good. Either he thinks along the same lines as I do, or he saw my video. And if he's seen my video, then he's gonna really want to write something, because it shows evidence that Zack Snyder knew that Wonder Woman was going to be this way. Here's what he has to say that also shows that either he watched my video or something. He says, Director Patty Jenkins deserves the credit for Wonder Woman's critical and financial success in delivering a blockbuster film worthy of praise and success regardless of its star's sex. But those claiming that the heroine's pure heroism has Zack Snyder's absence to thank are in for a surprise. According to the comments by the director, that's Zack Snyder, Diana's differences from the dark, tortured, and vengeful versions of Batman, not Superman, he says and Superman, but not Superman, that launched the DCEU were intended from the start. Okay? And we see that now. Lest we forget, there was a time that we argued that Zack Snyder and Warner Bros. Could build instant interest in a Wonder Woman movie by nailing our parents in Dawn of Justice. Snyder, Gal Gadot, and the studio opened the door, and Patty Jenkins took that break in the clouds and drove through it to a total victory, telling the story she had been hoping to tell for years. The question now is whether Snyder's focus on the demons of the DC's heroes paved the way, intentionally or not, I argue intentionally, for Wonder Woman to embody that a true hero in the DCEU really, what a true hero in the DCEU really looks like. I remember Zack Snyder at the end of Batman v Superman saying that this movie will have a lot of discussion. People are going to discuss this movie like crazy. And Zack Snyder was right. Why is he predicting all these things? How does he know? Okay? Zack Snyder, let me tell you guys a couple of things I saw when I was interviewing Zack Snyder. I remember Zack Snyder said about BVS, about the death of Superman, he said there are certain ways to bring forth a reaction from the audience that makes them know, okay, Superman's coming back. He said, I didn't quite go that way. I did something to trigger the audience to think that something's going to happen to Superman, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he's coming back. The other thing Zack Snyder said is there are different methods and ways to cue in an audience as to what is happening next. So Zack Snyder is very technical in what he's doing. I will say this about Zack Snyder, and I'll leave it alone. Zack Snyder is a director who will always make you feel uncomfortable at certain points in a movie. Because Zack Snyder wants you to internalize. He wants you to internalize. And if whoever's watching my videos and they're getting value from it, that's cool. I got something else to say about that. But he'll make you internalize something and make you think about yourself. Zack Snyder reflects things from his movies that will make you think about yourself. And Zack Snyder goes places with his movies. He goes to dark places that you have about yourself. He also goes to good places on what you think about yourself. Batman v Superman made people so have to reflect on themselves that they didn't like what they were seeing, the dark sides of themselves, in our heroes, because our heroes reflect ourselves. And Zack Snyder made us think that a hero is not always someone who is complimented, because people can say good things about you one day and bad things about you another day. But Zack Snyder took it to another level. Whereas in The Dark Knight, Christopher Nolan said that as long as you're out there, the longer you stay out there, one day you as a hero will become a villain. Snyder took it another level and he said, you may be viewed as a villain by the world or as a hero by the world, but that's not what makes you a hero. What makes you a hero is the choices you make to help other people, regardless of whether you're seen as a hero or a villain by them. Because sometimes you have to take steps which will make that other people do not appreciate or like, which will help them. And Zack Snyder is speaking from experience. If you've ever been someone who's oppressed, whether you've been a minority and you've experienced racism, whether you've been a woman and experienced sexism, whether you've been a parent and experience alienation from your children, because you can't be a friend to your children all the time. You have to take sometimes action that your children do not like you for and they don't want to be your friend, or you're a teacher or a leader where you have to take an action which is unpopular with other people, but it's the right action to take. You will come across a time when people will hate you and they will treat you bad. Sometimes you do what you think is the right decision and it ends up making the situation worse. This is what happened in BVS. Now, when you encounter it for the first time, you will be discouraged and you will question the actions you're taking. But BVS shows that you should continue anyway to do things that are good. The Bible says, do not be wearying good doing. Gandhi says that the payoff for doing good in the universe does not come immediately, but down the road. The people who were involved in transforming the way how people saw minorities, black people, Asian people, Latino people, understood the battle was not one that could be won in a single day. That to transform people's minds about you, but to continue doing the right thing, one day they'll see the merits in it. But till then, you have to plot on. This is what Zack Snyder understood, and this is what this movie was about. Superman was not hailed as someone who really was saving the world and a hero until he died, sadly, and paid the ultimate price. Even then, Batman v Superman is still not seen as one of the most heroic films ever, because that world of Batman v Superman mirrors all worlds so closely that unless each person looks inside their heart and realizes what they're doing, they realize that movie reflects the darkest parts of us and the best parts of us. And that's what Zack Snyder did. That's why I love Zack Snyder's movies. He goes very deep into who we are. But too many people think of Zack Snyder as just an action guy. Oh, he's not a good director. He's just an action guy. Even though he gave us the best rendition of Watchmen ever, even though people are praising him now in retrospect like hypocrites for Man of Steel because they can see the value in it, and it's not because they discovered the value in it, it's because of guys like Man of Steel Gives Answers. It's because of guys like Man of Steel Gives Hope. Fans who were not swayed by public opinion and began to show the merits and the depth of Zack Snyder's films. When the general media was saying, oh, Man of Steel is not comic book canon conscious, and Zack Snyder said, no, it's close to the canon, but it's not, you know, if you're looking at the old school movies, no, it's not as close to those like the Christopher Reeves, Richard Donner movies. No, it's not close to that, but it is canon. But then we have a writer from the canon, you know, a guy who wrote Superman Birthright coming out and saying, I don't know what Zack Snyder's talking about. What canon he's talking about. A guy right in the industry attacking Zack Snyder. So people like Man of Steel Gives Hope had to come out and show it's close to canon, and how much it's like canon, and how much Superman is like Superman. Because even that guy, the writer of Superman Birthright, what does he say? It's not light enough. There's not enough jokes. And then he starts to liken it to Christopher Reeves and Richard Donner's Superman of 1978. Doesn't he just completely agree with Zack Snyder? Zack Snyder said it's not like the movie format that you guys are used to, but it is from canon. And he's right. And then people came out and showed all the comic book books and the actual word for word verbatim Zack Snyder's pulling out of. When Zack Snyder said Batman is just like the Batman from the canon, and you start to look at the Killing Joke, you look at Batman Earth 1, you look at of course The Dark Knight Returns and The Dark Knight Strikes Back, Strikes Again, or Strikes Back, I think. I can't remember which one it is. Okay, and when we look at all of the other Batman books like Death in the Family, etc., literally, we also had The Man Who Laughs, where they get all of these literal imageries and stories and themes from and concepts. You know, people had to come out and actually show the stuff and show the comics. Literally sometimes line up the comics and the pages of the comics with what was actually happening in Batman v Superman, what was actually happening in Man of Steel. So people can see it literally was ripped from the comic book pages. And you think Zack Snyder only ripped from the comic book pages? Man of Steel actually ripped from Richard Donner's Superman. Literally. But after Man of Steel came out, this is not my Superman, and this is not my Superman, this is what I believe, because they couldn't say anymore it wasn't Superman. They couldn't say it anymore. So now I see Andrew Dice claiming that Zack Snyder actually, this could have been his plan all along. After I make this video as a fan showing how deeply Wonder Woman is entrenched in the DCEU and how Zack Snyder did plan for Wonder Woman to be featured that way. So Andrew Dice goes on to say, the presentation and introduction still work with a solo origin film set before Dawn of Justice. No surprise, since Zack Snyder has his story credit for Wonder Woman. With his new comments emphasizing Diana as the first pure hero in the DCU, it looks like Wonder Woman fans can look forward to that treatment continuing into Justice League. The trailers suggest that Bruce and Diana will be leading the charge, so it seems more and more like Wonder Woman's acting as a role model for every DCU hero may have been DC's film's plan from the start. Right? Confirms my video. And I know you guys will agree.